What you're looking at right now is one of the most elegantly designed character customization systems in all of gaming. Not only are there plenty of charms to pick and choose from, but their effects range from simple stat increases to unlocking completely new playstyles. That's awesome. And such a wonderfully designed system inspires in us, the players, the will to come up with our own unique designs. So what in the world are we waiting for, people? Screw waiting for Silksong. If we want new content, we're gonna have to start making it ourselves. I'm Holland, and this is Charm Forging. Hi, and welcome to Charm Forging. This is the first of what could become many episodes, a series where I design new custom charms for Hollow Knight that might have been part of the game had it continued to receive updates post Godhome. If that sounds interesting to you and you'd want to see this become an actual series, please consider subscribing. If you subscribe while watching this video, YouTube's analytics will let me know that you're specifically interested in this series, which is super helpful. For this video, my little brother and I have been tinkering away and have managed to come up with 5 exciting charms that I'm sure you'll find interesting, if not downright controversial. I have 2 younger brothers, so for convenience sake, I'll refer to the youngest one as Freddy. Say hi, Freddy.
Hi, Freddy.
Freddy drew each of the charms you'll see today all on his own, which I personally find remarkable given that he's only just turned 13 and has been drawing digitally for only about 2 months. If you find some of the ideas in this video objectionable, remember that my brother and I don't actually work for Team Cherry and we haven't tested these ideas out in-game. That's gonna lead to some of them, or all of them, being quite unbalanced. So although we're gonna try our best to keep every charm roughly the same power level as Spell Twister, what should matter the most is the idea behind the charm. Alright, no more stalling. Let's get into the first custom charm. Number 1. Infected Glare. The Infected Glare is found somewhere in the Ancient Basin. Where exactly isn't that important. What matters is that it's only accessible after having acquired the Monarch Wings. Ancient Basin is one of my favorite areas, but incredibly, no charms are found down here. Placing the Infected Glare in this area should make it feel a bit more interesting and worth traveling to. Here's what the Infected Glare does. 2 notches. Upon successfully using focus, an infected balloon is summoned above you up to a maximum of 2. The balloons travel toward the nearest enemy, dealing 1 space nail damage every second while touching the enemy. The balloons cannot be defeated but disappear sometime after spawning. If there are no enemies nearby, the infected balloons will follow the player around. The best part about this charm is that it supports both the healing and summoner archetype at once. With Infected Glare in your build, you're actually incentivized to use focus even if you're already at full health, giving it that much needed offensive edge. You could even think about synergies too. For example, when combined with Deep Focus, the charm might summon an armored version of the infected balloon that lasts longer or deals more damage, but perhaps moves a bit slower. Or, when combined with Spore's Room, the Toxic Cloud might also appear from the infected balloons when using focus. The possibilities are truly endless, and I think the Infected Glare could be so much fun to play around with. Now again, let me just reiterate that this might not be perfectly balanced, but the numbers could always be tweaked, so maybe the balloons only dealt 50% nail damage? That's also why I've left the active duration of the balloons purposefully vague. It would be up to the game designer to figure out what lifespan would make for optimal balance. But we've got plenty of charms to get through, so let's just move straight on to number 2. Archive Vessel. Another one of my favorite locations in Hollow Knight, which is even more underused than the Ancient Basin, is the Teacher's Archives. You only visit this area briefly to defeat Umu and break Monomon the Teacher's seal, and besides some strange lore tablets, there really isn't much else to discover down here. That's why I'm happy to present to you the Archive Vessel, one of Monomon's strange devices found somewhere inside the archives. 1 notch. When collecting soul, 25% is stored in the archive vessel rather than going to your soul gauge. Once the archive vessel has reached capacity, it will double the damage of the next spell you cast, emptying itself in the process. The purpose of the archive vessel is to allow you to pull off rad combos, particularly during boss fights. You have to spend some time collecting soul to power it on, then find the perfect spot to multi-hit with any of the spells for maximum damage. In trying to keep the charm balanced, I've made it effectively reduce your soul gain by 25%, as that soul is spent powering up the archive vessel. This should also hopefully encourage the use of charms like Soul Catcher and Soul Eater to gather more soul for powering up the charm. Now, how much soul does it take to power up the archive vessel? Well, I don't know exactly. That's the lever a game designer could adjust as needed. But in any case, with the archive vessel in Hollow Knight, the teacher's archives should hopefully feel a little more exciting to explore. Number 3. Arcane Compass. This next charm is very exciting, not only because it looks absolutely amazing, but also because it wouldn't be a new charm, but rather an upgrade to an old one. When obtained, the Arcane Compass would replace the Wayward Compass, keeping its functionality while granting it a new ability. Before we talk about how to acquire the Arcane Compass, let's first discover what it does. One Notch reveals the locations of uncollected items, spell upgrades, mask shards, soul fragments, pale ore, and charms. Wow, Holland, that is way too powerful, I hear you say. But fret not, my dear viewer, because you might be missing a key component of the charm. The Arcane Compass only reveals the locations of uncollected loot, not the loot itself. So while equipped, all you'll be seeing on the map are vague icons that show you where you've missed something. I don't want the charm to show you what you've missed. Heck, it probably shouldn't even show you what type of reward it is. All I want this charm to do is hint at where there might be some undiscovered content that you could go explore. For example, I think a lot of people miss the love key on their first playthrough. Well, I did anyway, and it's because passing through this area reveals this part of the map where the love key is hidden, even if you haven't been there specifically. You need Isma's Tear to get past some acid, and if you don't have it when exploring here, you'll most likely forget this area because it looks filled in on the map. That's where the Arcane Compass would come in extreme handy. Now, there are a few things I should get into with this charm. Firstly, due to the existence of the grub map, I don't want the Arcane Compass to disclose the locations of any grubs. That's already been taken care of. Additionally, I've left one other type of reward absent from what the compass can help you find: relics. If you feel like relics should also be revealed, I can totally understand that. But because they're not integral to getting full completion in the game, I suspect they probably serve a better role being completely hidden until you discover them yourself. One other thing I briefly considered having the charm reveal is bosses. I know those aren't rewards, but they're pretty important to find anyway. However, since there is usually a reward associated with, or close by, every boss, I've decided to exclude them from the list. Trader Lord, for example, can be a little bit hard to find, but he's close enough to the white fragment to where showing the fragment on the map should be enough of a hint to find him. Here's the last thing I'll say before we discuss how to acquire this charm. If you're opposed to the idea of having the locations of every reward on the map revealed to the player, think about the alternative. Usually when people get stuck, they look up where to go on a wiki or a playthrough. I'm embarrassed to admit that I did the same once or twice on my first time through. For example, after being hopelessly stuck trying to find the love key. So if looking up how to find a specific reward on the internet is the alternative, you can decide for yourself whether you think the Arcane Compass is a better solution or not. Now let's finally talk about how to acquire the charm. I'm not entirely sure. Finding the Arcane Compass wouldn't be just like finding any other charm. It could definitely end up ruining the exploration if found too early on. What I really want the charm to do is just to help you collect the last few rewards you're missing, as well as to point you in the direction of the white fragments. I see a lot of people struggling with finding the true ending legitimately, and I too had a hard time figuring out where exactly to go near the end. So while I'm not quite sure where to put the Arcane Compass, I do have a few suggestions. One is to place it somewhere inside the Abyss. Getting into the Abyss requires you to have defeated Hornet twice, which means you've probably collected the Monarch Wings and completed a lot of the game. However, even putting it all the way down here might still feel too early. The other idea I had was to give out the upgrade as the final reward for collecting Essence. Currently, once you've collected 2,400 Essence, the Seer simply vanishes and you're left feeling perhaps a little bit disappointed. Imagine instead that before leaving, she would upgrade your Wayward Compass to the Arcane Compass. Not only would that fit pretty well with the seer's character, it would also prevent you from getting the upgrade until quite late into the game. The counter-argument here is that this is very late into the game, and you might have already gotten stuck and looked up a couple of things on the internet before reaching this point. I think that's enough said about the Arcane Compass. I personally like the idea quite a lot, but if you have any objections, feel free to share them down in the comments below. Moving on. Number 4. Broadnail. You've heard of long nail, now get ready for Broadnail. Increasing the length of your nail is so last year, now it's all about the width. 2 notches. Increases nail width by 30%. Yep, that's the Broadnail. In my mind, since we have charms that buff the length of the nail, why not ones that alter its width, that is, how wide the nail slashes are? How exactly is this useful? Well, think about how much suffering you endure trying to hit those pesky primal aspits in Colosseum of Fools. Now you can be diagonally aligned with the aspid and still hit it. Perhaps this would even let you damage bosses in positions you previously couldn't. For example, while Grim is doing his spike attack, you could strike upwards and hit him with the edge of your blade. Broadnail is indeed a simple charm, but simple charms can be a lot of fun. And I think it fits quite well into Hollow Knight too. Also, you should totally be able to stack Long Nail, Mark of Pride and Broadnail for the biggest nail hitbox imaginable. Now you'll never miss another nail swing ever again. Where would you find this charm? Well, how about inside the Royal Waterways? That place only has 2 charms, so a third one, perhaps in the area leading to the Junk Pit, would flesh it out nicely. Or maybe, since the Broadnail is so simple, it should be found earlier on, in an area like Green Path or even the Forgotten Crossroads. Now, I'm going to level with you. There's a reason why the Broadnail does what it does, and it's because the next and final charm plays with the same mechanic. So let me reveal the most amazing charm design you've ever seen. Number 5. Warrior's Insignia. Damn! Doesn't that just look amazing? Freddy, you really outdid yourself on this one. I'm almost considering giving you an actual wage.
Please help me! He's forcing me to work for free!
Oh, quiet you. Anyway, the Warrior's Insignia. Here's what it does. 3 notches. Increases nail range by 50%, but shortens nail width by 60%. Now, before you start to process any of those numbers, let me just show you what I want this charm to do. It's something like this. I want the charm to turn your nail into a spear. When designing the Warrior's Insignia, I was looking at my brother's beautiful drawing and thinking, what do the Mantis Lords do that I would want the player to be able to do as well? And then it came to me, short and simple. We should be able to wield spears just like them. So basically, the charm increases the length of your nail even more than the current Mark of Pride and Long Nail combined, but it also makes it so narrow that you have to be exactly parallel with whatever you want to hit, or you're gonna miss your target. So pogoing suddenly becomes a whole different art. Now you can be much further away from your target, but you have to be right above it, no leeway. And now comes the even crazier part. You could combine Warrior's Insignia with Long Nail and Mark of Pride for the ultimate ranged weapon, being able to strike enemies from about twice as far away. Wow, insane. Or you could mellow out a bit and put on Broadnail to combat some of the downside of the Insignia, widening the blade of the spear a little, although still keeping it narrower than without any charms. So, how do you get your hands on the Warrior's Insignia? Well, I have an idea, but it's pretty wild. After having beaten the Mantis Lords, you earn their respect, but as most of us know from having fought the Sisters of Battle, the Lords went a little easy on us first time through. So how about once you show them what you're really capable of by defeating the Traitor Lord, you can return to the Mantis Lords once again and they'll let you challenge them for a second time. This time, however, you're fighting the Sisters of Battle, where all 3 attack you at the same time. If you manage to beat them in this form, you'll have earned their ultimate respect, as well as the Warrior's Insignia. If you couldn't tell by now, I love coming up with new ideas and using videos like this one to explore them in greater detail. And that sometimes, in fact often, leads me to suggest some pretty stupid things. I have no doubts that most of the concepts I've proposed in this video are riddled with mistakes and inadequacies. But I'm not alone in my explorations. I've got my amazing brothers who help give me feedback on every video I make. Freddy, the youngest, who drew each of the charms you've seen in this video. And I have you people, who watch my videos and help keep me in check. The fact that so many of you politely share your invaluable feedback down below is more than I could ever ask for. So thank you so much for that. I loved making this video. In fact, I usually take days to write my scripts, but this one I've almost written in a single session. However, I'm only going to make this into a series if anyone is actually interested in watching. And so before I do my outro, I'm going to ask you once again to consider subscribing if you want another entry in this series. I've got so many more ideas I want to share with you. But that's all for now, folks. Thanks again to my brother Freddy for the visual design behind all the charms, and for everyone who leaves feedback on these videos letting me know what I could do better in the future. And even just for watching, you're awesome. Have a wonderful day.